Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Welcome to this lecture, Leading Learning to Maximize Progress. We have the opportunity to listen to one of the best professional speakers in the world of education, James Nottingham. He inspires teachers, leaders, and pedagogues to think and take action. He is an internationally known freelance trainer and educational consultant. He started his own company, Challenging Learning, in 2005, and he now leads a team of consultants throughout the world. He was originally a teacher and leader in both primary and secondary schools. He was then co-director of an award-winning multi-million-pound regeneration project supporting education, business, and community groups in Northeast England. Today, he's a founding director of P4C.com, the international resource and collaboration site for philosophy for children. He's a member of the Future 500, a definitive list of the UK's most forward-thinking and brightest innovators. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Ar Italian, buenas tardes, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here today. I know there's a lot of choice for you, lots of different things going on, so thank you very much for choosing to be here today. I'm going to talk about progress and what we can do to help teachers, support staff, leaders, and students to focus more on progress. The slides that I will use, you are very welcome to get a set of those slides. All you need to do is this card that you got. If you just pull it apart like that and put your email address and give it to somebody on the way out with your email address and tick the PowerPoint slides, we will make sure you get a copy of the notes. When I started doing the job that I do now, which is working with schools and preschools and colleges in different parts of the world, I took a trip to Australia and New Zealand and absolutely loved that trip, fell in love with that part of the world. One of the things I found very interesting was that teachers in that part of the world seemed to know a lot about wine. I don't know whether they're all alcoholic or something, but the conversations in the staff room would revolve around the variety of grape and matching that wine with different foods, and I'm thinking, I know what is red wine, I know what is white wine, and I think you make rosé by putting the two together. So I thought, I want to know more about this. I came home from that trip and I signed up for a wine tasting course. This is me on that course. A 20-day course from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. Imagine what my liver was like at the end of that. And at the end of that course, we all had to take an exam. And I was thrilled to get 76%. Oh yeah, thanks. Ooh, from 2 of you. I thought I might have got a round of applause there, but don't you worry. No, I don't want pity praise, thank you. I got 76%. And I was thrilled. I was really proud of myself until the teacher sent us the list of scores. And guess where I had come? Right there at the bottom. This is true. My friends and family said, have you got that certificate for your wine tasting? And I said, no, I think it must be lost in the post. Because I was disappointed to come bottom. I had gone from knowing nothing about wine to getting 76% on a test. From 0 to 76%. That's pretty damn good, isn't it? But I had come bottom. The person who got 98% had spent the previous 10 years as an editor of a wine magazine. Do you think that might have had an influence on the scores he got? You see, the moment we get this rank order of high scores, medium scores, low scores, that's when our students, that's when their parents, that's when teachers start to think there are such things as clever children, average children, and then special needs children. And what does that do to their willingness to learn? There is a theory by Jacqueline Eccles that how much a student applies themselves, the amount of application they put in other words, how much effort, how much determination, how much time they put into doing something, is a product of how much they value that thing that they are doing, multiplied by their expectation. Now, I have long thought that it would be great to learn, for example, Spanish. I would value that. Learning to speak Spanish, that would be great. The problem is, my expectation of success is very low. I don't think I could learn Spanish well enough to be able to present in Spanish. And here's the thing. If my value of Spanish is 10 out of 10, but my expectation of success is 0, what is anything multiplied by 0? So how much do I apply myself? And I bet almost everybody in this room, when we were going to school, there were things that we thought, I'm never going to be able to do that. Some of us thought, I can never do sport. Some of us thought, I could never do maths. Some of us thought, I could never get into reading literature. And how much effort did we put into those things that we thought we will never succeed at? And here's what I would like to propose. We should change that idea of expectation. It should not be about expecting to be the best. It should be about expecting to make serious progress. Should I expect to be able to speak Spanish fluently, given I'm in my mid-40s and I don't spend very much time in Spanish-speaking parts of the world? I might think, no. But could I expect to make serious progress? To be much better than I was. Not to be better than you are, but to be better than I was last month, last year, 3 years ago. And that's the thing. How can we get our students to focus more on progress when actually our exam system and our cultural systems are far too often focused on top, middle, bottom? And there are all sorts of things going against this. For example, in the UK, this guy, Chris Woodhead, I would like to change the first part of his surname. I'm assuming that doesn't translate very well for the people listening in Spanish. This is what he wrote recently in a book. Middle-class kids have better learning genes. That guy had a very powerful voice in the design of what happens in schools in England. And we've got that to battle with. And I'm sure it's not just happening in the UK. It's happening all over the world. Then there are things like this. And Howard Gardner spoke the other day. And thankfully, he's really making the message clear that too many teachers have misinterpreted this. Some of the people in the room, I can see, we were together in Kuala Lumpur at the Thinking Conference some years ago. He began his speech by saying, "I wish teachers had never heard my ideas about multiple intelligence, because teachers are obsessed with categorizing kids." I go into schools and I see and I hear teachers saying, "That's a musical group," or "They're the mathematical group," or "She's very linguistic." I was in one school, there was a boy at the back of the class doing this. And I thought, poor lad, he's having a fit. But he kept going, so I thought, maybe he's not having a fit. So I walked up and I said, "Excuse me, young man, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I have to move to learn." Who the hell has taught him that utter load of rubbish? You have to move to learn? Are you having a laugh? It might sound very groovy, hip, and down with the kids to say, "Oh, you're a kinesthetic learner." But then that poor child goes to another classroom where, funnily enough, the teacher expects them to sit still. So that student is now thinking, "This teacher doesn't let me move. The other teacher said, I have to move to learn. Therefore, I can't learn. So I may as well go blah, 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 blah." What's that doing to his expectation of success? If he's been told the only way you can learn is through movement. That's a very nice idea, if we use it to remind ourselves there are many different ways to learn, and we should encourage students to make progress in all these dimensions. It's a very bad idea if people say, "Well, you're the musical, and you're the linguistic, and you're the social." I heard a teacher speaking at a conference recently, and he was very proud of the fact that he always gets his students to work in their preferred learning style. What? Can you imagine turning up for a driving test? "I'm sorry, I'm not kinesthetic, but I am musical. So I'm going to sing you a song all about driving in winter. And you have to pass me, otherwise it's against my human rights." Where has this lunacy come from? In England, do you recognise that character? That was many, many, many years ago. In England, the oldest children in any class are born in September, and the youngest are born in August. That's just the way we organise our year. You have to start school in the academic year in which you turn 5. That's just the way we do it. Here is what they found. 71% of September-born children make it into those top sets, compared to only 26% of the August-born. Is it to do with intelligence, or is it something to do with how long you've been on this planet? Those of us who believe in God, he's got a very strange sense of humour if he just gives out brains in September. No, I'm not giving brains out in August, because I'm saving them all up for September-born children. That's a funny going on, if you ask me. These are all the things that are going against learning. They're going against helping students to make progress. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all children are the same. Of course they're not the same. Everywhere we look, we see different children with different abilities and different interests. Characters like these two. Can I show you what I've got under these two photographs? Lisa Simpson. Under there that's my eldest daughter in Seville about 4 years ago. Just look at the way she's holding her shoulders. She modelled herself on that. Look at that. Do you want to see what I've got under Bart? Look at that. That's what he thinks counts as a smile. I can't get over how different they are. In fact, when the postman walks up the street, I look at him suspiciously. We've recently had a third child. In fact, that's why I missed the Wellington conference, because this third one was coming along. I cannot understand how different those children are. It's beyond my understanding. The two girls have loved language right from the beginning. They love to pore over books. The youngest one, she's 2.5, she never stops talking. And she talks in her sleep. Harry, bless him, he doesn't talk so much. Partly because he cannot talk, he can't get a word in edgeways with his sisters. But also his speech is delayed. And it's very difficult to understand him. So his older sister talks for him. Having said that, if he were to trip over and fall onto the floor, get a lump on his head, he would simply go, and he'd keep running. Whereas if Ava even scratched her fingernail, she'd want to go to hospital for a whole week. They are different. Here's the thing. Harry has just started school. He's only 5, and yet he's just started school. And I am worried about the day he says to himself, I'm not the academic one. I'm the sporty one. My sisters are the clever ones. I'm the sporty one. You try teaching him then. He's sat in your class and he's thinking, yes, you might be a very nice teacher and you might be a very good teacher, but I can't do it. Looking out the window, let me out there and then I'll show you what I can do on a football field. And I know that he's starting down here with language compared to his older sister started up there with language. And it's the other way round for sport. But should that matter, that he is better at some things and worse than others, or should it matter more that actually, whether they start there or start there, they are making enormous progress? That's the key, isn't it? Not to compare one child with another child, but to compare one child with themselves. Are you making progress? Are you doing better than you were before? Let's look at what I mean by that. And you've got that, this model I'm going to talk about is on that card that you can take away. I'm going to compare the difference between achievement and progress. Let's take that line there to represent achievement. This is what a student can do right now. So, for example, they can get a grade B in maths, or they can get 76% on an exam, or they can swim 100 meters in so many seconds. It's what they are able to do right now. This is to do with progress, how much improvement they are making over time. Let's put a dotted line through the middle of achievement. Above that line is seen as good achievement. Below that line is seen as weak achievement. Let's put a dotted line through the middle of progress. To the left of that line is below average progress. To the right of that line is above average progress. Let's put some dotted lines around the outside for those of us with OCD. In the top left, this is where students have got high achievement stroke low growth and low progress. They have got very high grades, but their progress right now is slow. Normally, That's something to do with them thinking, I am already very good. I don't need to do any better. Or their teachers thinking, they are already very good. I don't need to worry about them. Top right is where we want all students to be. Superb grades and making brilliant progress. The former Minister for Education in England and Wales recently said, I want all schools to be above average. Really? Well, you know what I mean. No, we don't know what you mean, you clown. Bottom left. That's a disaster. Low achievement and low progress. They're not catching up. And you know what? In most countries, about 15% of students are in that bottom left-hand quadrant. 15% are being left behind. And they tend to come from either low socioeconomic areas or they are recent immigrants who don't speak the native language yet. Bottom right, their grades are low, but they're catching up. Here's the thing. Too many people say, we just need kids to get good grades. Going to school, the proof of success in school is getting good grades. What they are saying is, those are the best two quadrants. But it seems to me everybody in this room is connected with education, which are the best two quadrants to move children into. That was a direct question, not a rhetorical. Exactly. What don't we want them over there? The thing is, do you know? Do you know where your students are? Because if we knew, we could then think about how we're going to move them, if indeed we do need to move them. Do you know how much progress your students are making? The thing is, they're going to make progress anyway. Kids learn. They don't need to go to school to learn. It's, are they making really good progress? And what does that look like? Let me ask you this question. There's a test. This happens to be a spellings test. And let's say the girl in the picture gets 10 out of 10 in her test. Please raise your hands now if you would praise her and say, very good, well done. Come on, raise your hands now. How many of you would say, very good, well done? And how many of you are hesitating now thinking, that sounds like a trick question to me? Of course it's a trick question. Because what does that represent? Achievement or progress? Achievement. The thing is, we know it represents achievement, but we don't know whether it represents progress. It might not. Two students, they both get 10 out of 10. This one has worked really hard and has had to put lots of effort and lots of practice and lots of time into learning those 10 words. This student put no effort in because it was really easy and she could have done it 2 years ago. They both get 10 out of 10. Do they both deserve the same amount of praise? No. So why do they get the same amount of praise then? Here is what I would suggest would be a better way of doing it. Okay, kids, We've got spellings test next week. Let's have a practice then. Number 1, boy. Write it down, please. Number 2, toy. Why aren't you writing them down? And the children, because we haven't learnt them yet. And I say, I know you haven't learnt them yet. This is to find out how many you know at the moment. Because I need to make sure there's room to improve. I need to make sure you've got chance to make progress. So come on, we had boy, toy, enjoy. Make an interesting sentence from those 3 words, couldn't you? But again, not a translatable thing. In the pre-test, let's say the girl in the picture gets 4 out of 10 in her pre-test. I'm thinking to myself, fine, she's still got 6 more words to learn. But what if she got 9 out of 10? Is that really much room for improvement to learn 1 word in a whole week? So what do? Give her some more challenging words. Now, I know those of you who teach teenagers will be folding your arms right now, saying, yeah, right. I know what my teenagers will do. They will work out the system and think, I've got to get everything wrong on purpose so I don't get the hard stuff. Well, call them on it then. Say, if you want easy stuff, I'll give you easy stuff. You can do what 6-year-olds are doing if you really want. And they'll say, oh no, we don't want that baby stuff, we want the good stuff. Exactly. We've got to make sure they've got room to improve. The child who gets 0 needs more help in learning how to learn. Notice the emphasis, not more help in learning those words, but more help in learning how to learn, to develop her learning and thinking skills that we've been talking about all week, to help her develop strategies for learning. And here's what we do. Let's say the girl in the picture gets 4 out of 10 in her pre-test. Then, later she gets 10 out of 10. Now what do we know? We know her progress score. If I were you, that's the score I would praise. That's the score we should draw attention to. The progress score. Not the achievement, the progress score. Let me ask you this. How many of you put kids' work on the walls? Take their artwork and put it on the walls. Raise your hands, please, if you do that. I can see lots of people think, oh, God, he's going to say something's wrong with this now as well. That is the finished artwork, and therefore it represents children's achievement. It doesn't represent progress, it represents their achievement. Here is what I would suggest as a better way to do it. They sketch out their first draft, their pencil drawing of this painting. They sketch it out. When they've finished their first draft, take a photograph of it. They then develop it and improve it to draft 2. Take a photograph of it. They then finish the piece of work. And now what we put on the wall is photograph of draft 1, photograph of draft 2, their finished piece of work with a written description underneath by the child of what they did to improve their work. We are still valuing achievement, but we're drawing attention to progress. Take 2 minutes. Talk to the person next to you. What else could you do to emphasize progress? This is not getting rid of achievement. This is emphasizing progress more than sometimes we do. 2 minutes talking to the person next to you. Okay, can I pause you there, please? Thank you. Some wonderful schools that I've been working with around the world. One that I'd like to talk about is in Masterton in New Zealand. And their kids start at school, and very soon they get a reading test. Now you might think, giving young children a reading test, is that really a good thing? The children don't know they're doing a reading test. Here's how they do it. There is a dog called Billy. Billy comes into school every day, and she sits in the library. And all the little children queue up to read to Billy the dog. As soon as they've finished one page of the book, they are allowed to give a treat to Billy the dog. Guess how well Billy the dog listens. And the child, another page, another treat, another page, and the child wants to keep reading and giving the dog the treat, and the dog's going like this. Round the other side of the bookcase is a teacher sat with the same book, making lots of notes about what the child can and can't read, what letters they understand, what blends they're able to do, and so on. So they do that very soon in the new year. Then, about 4 or 5 months later, they do another reading test. The same thing happens. And then they compare the difference between the reading test in February and the reading test in June. I've purposely kept this small and got rid of the surnames. But this is the test in February, and this is the test in June. They can work out how much progress these children have made. Then what they can do is look at this quadrant. This is not made public. This is not put it in the newspaper. This is information for the teacher about what is working and what is not. We've heard Bill Martin talking about how much innovation we've got in school, and we've got too much innovation. How many of you are fed up with having to change and then change some more? Every new government that comes in, there's change. And when somebody comes to us and says, you need to change, we think, really? Do I have to? But we know in our heart there are some children who aren't making good enough progress. So we think, okay, we should go along with that change. That is silly. Because if I had that information, I would know whatever we're doing to teach reading is working for all of those children there. All the children on the right-hand side, the way we teach reading is working. What it's saying to me, though, is the children on the left, it's not working for those 6. So, I agree that we need to change, but only for those 6 children. I don't know if you've got this phrase in Spanish, but in English we say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you change the way you teach reading, you will throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because for those children on the right, it's working. Why would you want to change it? But for those 6, yes, we need to change it. Now, the thing is this. We probably already know those 4 children down there are doing badly and we need to change it. We know that already. We don't need to do tests, we know. But I bet you most of us would miss those 2 children. I bet you most of us would think, those children are doing fine. But you know what? They're not. They're doing fine in terms of achievement, but they're not doing fine in terms of progress. And isn't that why they're coming to school? To make progress. One of the things that helps kids to make lots and lots of progress is teach them some thinking skills. You've been picking that up, I hope, throughout the conference. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the learning pit. That's one of the ways I like to teach children how to think. And I'll talk about that tomorrow. We haven't got time today. So one thing is teach them how to think, to help them make more progress. Another one is feedback. Give them really good feedback and let them give us feedback. The problem is, I think many of us get our feedback timing wrong. Recently, I had a go at building a wall in my garden. That's not the wall and that's not my garden. But you get the idea. Do you think I built the whole wall before I got a friend who happens to be a builder to take a look at it? Imagine that. He would have walked along and gone, I wouldn't have done it like that if I'd been you. You started badly, dreadful in the middle, and the less we say about the top, the better. How interested would I have been to build another wall? Here's the thing. How many of us give feedback to our students after they've finished their work? What's that all about? Why do we give it after they've finished their work? Surely it should be during the process. And they have to be able to use it. Here is what I would like to suggest to you as the 7 steps to feedback heaven. How's that for a promise for a Wednesday afternoon? First things first. They need to understand the goals. They need to understand what the feedback will be about. And I will talk some more about that tomorrow. If they don't understand what the feedback will be focused on, then how on earth are they going to be able to make progress? Once they've understood the goals, then they do draft 1. I hope that translates well, because in English, it's powerful to get children to say, I am doing draft 1, and not to say, I'm doing my work. Because if I'm doing my work, when I've finished it, I give it to my teacher. But if I say I'm doing draft 1, there is an assumption that I'm going to edit it. I'm going to improve it. I'm going to change it. So, they do draft 1. Then they give themselves and each other feedback. What do you think about this? Compared to what we were trying to achieve, how much progress do you think I've made? What could I do to improve what I'm doing? And based on the advice from themselves and their friends, they then develop it and do draft 2. And I'm not necessarily talking about written work. This could be to do with swimming. This could be to do with athletics. This could be to do with drama. Draft 1, then they give themselves feedback. Draft 2 is an improvement based on the advice that they've got from themselves and each other. After draft 2, then we give our brilliant feedback. And our feedback is advice, advice, advice. Some of the skills of thinking that you've heard of in this conference, take those. Encourage them to use those skills of thinking right now. Could you use a plus minus interesting from Edward de Bono? Could you use a Venn diagram to compare the similarities and differences? We're giving them advice. And here's the key. After we've given our advice, then they should finish the work. Some teachers, honestly, have said to me, isn't that cheating? And I said, I'm sorry, I think you are misunderstanding it. I'm not talking cheating, I'm talking teaching. We are there to help students achieve more than they can by themselves. Surely. That's what we're there to do. In fact, it might help you to think about, when giving feedback, are you the referee or are you the coach? I'll give you a hint. We should only be the referee when it comes to exams. The rest of the time, we should be the coach, helping them to achieve more than they can by themselves. That's where these lovely thinking skills that we've been learning about, that's when they come in handy. That's when our expertise comes in handy, because we are the coach to help students go further. But let's not wait until they finish the work. Let's make sure we give our feedback before they finish the work. And then if you have to grade the work, do that right at the end, and even better, get the students to grade their own work. If they don't know how to grade their own work, then they didn't understand number one anyway. And I'm not just talking written feedback, I'm not just talking verbal feedback. Of course, there is non-verbal feedback. We shouldn't be about writing too much. There's non-verbal feedback as well. How's this for non-verbal feedback? Tony Abbott, Prime Minister of Australia. Yeah. How's that for non-verbal feedback? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And it recently happened to our Prime Minister too. It just goes to prove politicians should keep out of education. Seriously though, let's go back a stage. There are far too many schools, maybe represented here today, who look at the quality of the feedback. Why are we looking at the quality of the feedback? We should be looking at the impact and the effect of the feedback. Lots of us have moved away from looking at the quality of teaching, and now we look at the quality of learning. Many, many years ago in the UK, there was this new idea that principals should visit classrooms to watch teachers teach. Why would you watch teachers teach? What's that got to do with anything? One of my colleagues I used to teach with, and he's here at this conference right now. This is how he broke the system. He said, "Now listen, kids. I've got the principal coming in to watch me teach. Yesterday's lesson worked brilliantly. So do you think we could repeat that lesson? Will you ask the same questions, do the same things, and I promise you I'll make it worth your while." Principal came in, watched the teacher. Oh, that's the best teacher we've got in this school. We've moved away, thankfully, at looking at the quality of teaching. Now we're looking at the quality of learning. I should welcome everybody into my classroom, but not to watch me teach. Watch the learning. Have conversations with the children. What are you learning? How much progress have you made? What are you going to do next? Look at the learning. It's the same with feedback. We should not be looking at the quality of the feedback. We should be looking at the impact of the feedback. Are they improving as a result of our feedback? So, I'm going to give you just 1 minute to talk with the person next to you. One action that you're going to take from this presentation, and then I'll finish with a story. 1 minute, one action. Okay, can I pause you there then? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Remind you about these. If you want the PowerPoint slides, just hand these to either Mike or Becky, who has stood over there, or Richard, who's stood in the middle, if you want the PowerPoint slides. Let me finish, if I may, with a story. Have you heard the phrase that every Englishman's house is his castle? Heard that phrase? Let me show you my house, then, if I may. There you go. All right, it's not mine. But we support the golf course that photograph was taken from. And this is the message that we use in our support. Proving is good. Improving is better. Notice I'm saying proving is good. Achievement is a good thing. Improving is even better. One final thing, though. My family and I were walking around the castle about 2 years ago. And we get up into the keep, and there's a window there. If you look out of that window, you see the battlements, you see the sand dunes, and then there's the sea. And in the distance there is Holy Island, Lindisfarne, Holy Island, where the Vikings first landed on Britain's peaceful shores, and it was going to be a beautiful photograph. I thought, I've got to take a photograph of that. I had my baby daughter on my hip at the time, so I just put her down on the floor, and my son sat next to her. I get my camera out, and I'm about to take what is going to be a beautiful photograph out of the window. Just as I'm about to take that photograph, I look down, and thankfully, I took my camera away from the window, and I took this photograph instead. Isn't that lush? Absolutely lush. And you see, he does smile. Now and again. And it just makes me think, we are all away at a conference, learning about all sorts of thinking skills, and hopefully we're picking up new ideas and new strategies, and that's brilliant. But if we're so focused on the strategies, the looking out the window, that we forget to take care of our students, we forget to put our arm around their shoulder, we're fools. The key is getting the blend between looking out the window, finding those strategies, but always taking care of our students. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Thank you.